Good afternoon, everybody. I hope all is well with you. Look, this is episode 10 of Four Brothers.
Wow.
Now, last episode, y'all see your boy is back. We had Alan take my place. He did a wonderful job last episode.
Yeah, big man.
So we give him credit for role reversing with me so I can see what's on the other side of running the podcast in the stream. So now, last episode, we talk about church at a crossroad. Church as a crossroad. Mm-hmm. And the generational gem came from my brother Fred. And he dropped a good gem on us. He said, we are going to rely on our elders' wisdom and the strength of our youth to take the right path at the crossroads. Yeah. That was his generational gem. Now, let me introduce you to the panel. We do have the panel back. We are all back. So I am the host, your millennial, Charles White. To my left, right here, to my far left, I have the generational Z, Chris Wilson.
Welcome
right
back.
Beside me.
Yeah.
Yes, representing generational X, I have Fred Womble and the baby boomer, Doc Rhedrick is here.
Welcome back, Doc.
Now, y'all, this episode is cranberry sauce and conversation. Cranberry sauce and conversation. Four Brothers commits to the following rules of engagement, aka brotherly love. Each person brings a statement with the topic of each episode and breaks it down. The other three brothers get an opportunity to respond. Each statement and response needs to be supported biblically and or with church history. Finally, and most importantly, we always remember we are brothers in Christ, lifting each other up through these discussions. And with that being said, y'all, I'm going to jump right into my topic.
Okay.
I'm going to jump right into my topic. And it's this statement here. We need to stop thinking the calendar will stop our grieving, sadness, or anger. We need to stop thinking the calendar will stop our grieving, sadness, or anger. And I want to bring this topic to the table. One, it's an emotional one during this time of year that, honestly, a lot of people don't like talking about because we're at this holiday high. Mm-hmm. And to be real, holiday highs can come with some holiday lows after it's all said and done.
Preach, boy.
And, and that's why I want to bring that because, you know, I'm going to say personally, I had to face my own reality from a mental breakdown to depression. And it was all because of having deaths that came at rocky times. Losing my father right after I got elected into the state board. Losing my mother 12 days after getting my community college degree. And during the holidays, I just wasn't feeling it. Even though I was happy to see people, I'm like, okay, whatever. This cool. I'm angry. I'm sad. And a lot of times we hear people say after the casket is closed and everything is done, we gonna be there. And a lot of people said that, but they wasn't there. But the real ones that was there, that supported me, that was in my corner, was real enough to say, Charles, you need to get some help. And that's where, as black men, I'm gonna be real, we need to be willing to say, hey, I need to get some help. It's okay to go see a therapist when you're angry, when you're hurting. It's okay to seek support. I'm thankful to Minister Bobby Favors for seeing something that I didn't see in myself when I was hurting. Brother Fred, I thank you. Chris, Doc, for y'all being in my corner to say, yeah, you doing all this live stream, but you really not doing straight. So instead of me looking at myself saying, no, I'm all right, I ain't going through no mental breakdown, I had to face the reality and say, I'm depressed, I'm angry. How do I deal with that? And I had a support group, not only from biblical context, but from real reality. Because a lot of people will say, oh, well, the Lord will lead you and guide you. Yes, he will. Mm-hmm. But the Lord also needs people to help push you forward. And I think sometimes believers make excuses when they're, oh, I'm going to be there. And then you pick up the phone and they're nowhere to be found. And then they looking in the mirror saying, well, why they commit suicide? Or why they don't come to church, or why they so depressed, or why they lose their home from a mental breakdown or things like that. So we need to be more willing and open and being able to share. And you ain't got to share with everybody. Share with people that you trust, some support groups that ain't going to put all your stuff out on Front Street. That's what I had to learn. Not everybody you need to tell. Right. And that was hard because I had to decipher who I could trust and who I couldn't.
That's deep, Charles, and real. Just going to push you a little bit. Biblical source and the real deal.
Yeah.
I
heard that, yeah.
Ecclesi.
But they're both for real. It's being able to walk in both of them, right? And like you said, a lot of times we'll come to you with cliches. And in that moment of hurt, you don't need cliches. You need relationships, someone to stand close to you and things of that nature. And it is real after, usually funerals, after that high, that emotional support high, everybody there for you, things of that nature. There'd be a few, maybe a week after, a couple of weeks, maybe a month. But after that, people get back into their routines. And you're sitting there left broken and with a hole in you. And you have a hole in your soul. And I want to commend you for allowing people in. So I think it's a twofold thing. I think, one, we as men have to let people in, okay? Because if we don't let people in, there's no way they can see it until we blow up, okay? And then two, if someone comes to us being honest like you were, if someone say, how you doing? Stop being dressed up and being messed up, because that's how we'll walk around all dressed up, but on the inside we're messed up. And to that point, I'm going to go ahead and throw this out there. We're actually working on Minister Roundtree right now and Reverend Arline for a therapist to come in, hopefully before Christmas, pointing directly to Black men.
Wow.
And grief.
Yeah.
During the holiday high.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And when you started talking about it, I'm going like, okay, Lord, this is real, that this is needed, because it came to me. I didn't go looking for it. I'm not taking any credit for it. It was brought to me. And I said, okay, yeah, let's see if we can get that. Now, of course, trying to find a space and place on the calendar, but the idea that you're open and honest about it and that someone's bringing that says, just like you said, it's real.
Yes.
Yeah, and we need to be real with it and stop faking the phone. Yeah.
That's that. I'm with you on that, because I had a good conversation with a mentor of mine this week. We were talking about that. It was just good to be able to be in a safe space, to have a brother that you can just lay those burdens down. I mean, without fear of looking soft, without fear of well, really jacked up. You know what I mean? But it was a safe space for us to unburden ourselves of some things we've been going through, and just hearing some wise counsel. So I'm glad you brought this point up. Like you. Most of us on the stage have suffered some loss, and holidays are that that season. Going to your point, like the calendar doesn't dictate,
right?
Yep.
But the calendar is an indicator of where you're going to be. You coming up on it. I remember how my mom. And so one of those things with the loss that I've experienced, what we've done to adjust to the loss is to create some new traditions. Not to disregard what we used to do, because we used to have Thanksgiving with moms and, the sweet potato pie, although somebody tried to encroach upon my birthright consistently.
Yeah, we have to talk to that person. We're going to find out who it is.
That person needs some help.
So
prayer. But, and just the things, how she did it. But we created something new. In that. So we can, cherish what we had, but we can also look forward to the new, and to be able to share that space and that time with the family. And the new paradigm is good. But also, like you guys were talking about, being able to holler at your older brothers and your younger brothers, to walk with you. Iron sharpens iron. It's a safe space. And I encourage all you brothers, don't, you're not too big, you're not too bad, to reach out for some help.
That's it. That's it.
So let's get the help while you can. That's all I got, man. This is a dope topic.
Everybody's dropping straight facts. Even with me, going through college right now, I think it was my junior now, so I think sophomore year. I decided, I was like, you know what, like, I just want to find who I am. I personally went to counseling, therapy, and it helped me just to figure out who I am. It helps. There's nothing wrong with it. So I know, especially with my generation, most young men, it's just yeah, no, I'm not doing that. Yeah. It makes you.
You say your generation doesn't do that?
Yeah, we don't we don't want help.
Oh, wow.
Because of the fact that I think we feel as though that, like, you know, we feel as though we're built like, you know, like tough and like all this other stuff, and it makes us weak, type thing. Yeah. And so, but yeah, there's nothing wrong with it.
Wow, it's interesting to hear you say that, Chris, because you would think that your generation would probably be more apt to it than our generation, because the same thing that you said about your generation, our generation says the same thing. You know? And that, I guess that's the thing about, you know, us having this kind of conversation, because that's why I asked you to repeat it. Right? Because when you said y'all don't want help, I'm like, I thought they were the opposite. You know, so we're more alike than we are different when we start looking at how we handle things, right? So you're saying that your generation will prefer to just do it on their own or without help. Man, that's really deep. Fred, where did you think that they would land? Did you know that they were there?
That actually surprised me too.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, because like I said, I mean, you guys collectively, you come together, right? And you find, I mean, that's where we get safe spaces from.
Right. And tribes. And
and all that kind of stuff. But still and that's what I'm thinking. I think I was assuming that that's where your help would come from. Versus seeking or wanting even the professional help to go on a step beyond. So that was surprising to me as well.
That's why I had to have, you know, I heard it right now. Seriously,
it pricked my ears. I'm like,
I guess we just tend to, like, you know, just do it ourselves.
Yeah.
Really seeking the help.
Well, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you, because I'm thinking, like, too, you guys are so
media,
media savvy, and you're so into, you know, your personal screen time that I figure you can go WebMD or wherever and find some help. Maybe that lends itself to it.
And all the social spaces that they have, you know, I figure, you know, they can poke in and out and things of that nature. But, you know, now when you flip the coin, though, when you see these kinds of mass killings and things of that nature, and then you go and you find their you know, their resources and all that they had, their manifest that they had, and everything, you could see that they were hurting, and how they show it is probably a whole lot different than how we show it. You know, when they blow, right, when your generation blows, it is a firestorm, whereas we would probably more internalize it. Would you agree with that?
I would.
Wow. That's good
deep.
to know. That's deep.
And I'm glad you brought that up. And I want to give some appreciation to you, Doc, because you're willing enough to say, and we were on campus, and this was during my mental breakdown, and you asked me, how you doing? And you saw my face, and you said, I understand. For you to be willing enough to say, he's not right.
Right.
But I'm going to let him come to me.
Right.
Instead of being that push of saying, I'm gonna force myself to help, because when you force yourself you could force yourself into a situation that you don't even want to put yourself in, because you're working on it yourself. So for you to be willing enough to say, email me, call me, reach out. I appreciate you for that, because I know some preachers and ministers, they will just come right up, because I get that you're biblically sound, but sometimes biblical doctrine, sometimes we need that real. And
that's the point he was pushing back on.
Yeah, because and that's the thing. And you're right. Some people mishandle that, and it does leave a sort of a like chalk on the board kind of reaction. But the key thing is to balance that, right? And putting it in the real, and knowing that we can't separate it. We live these departmentalized, put my faith over here and my real life over here. And it's not an either or, it's a both and. And so thank you for that. And that's the thing, you always hear me, you know, let's just try to keep it real and incorporate that in your life. And so you don't have the pastor over here and Rhedrick over here, you know. Yeah.
Because I think for a lot of people it's tough. You know, even for me, I was like, I'm doing live streams, and my therapist even said, you doing live streams and all this stuff, but you didn't even realize you was really talking to yourself and not talking to nobody on that camera.
Right.
I'm like,
your own therapist.
Right. And I didn't realize it. And she was like, you was doing all this during a mental breakdown. You didn't ever think about after that you was talking to yourself? I said, no, because I was helping other people. She said, the person you might need to help is yourself.
Thank you, Lord. Yeah. And that's where we sometimes, again, misapply that passage when Jesus says, love your neighbor as yourself, right? So we go out this all out loving somebody else, but the key word is as.
Yeah.
All right? That simile, like yourself. So if you don't love yourself first, you really can't go out here loving on somebody else. But we do. We show them all that love, but we haven't ministered to ourselves. And so that's a mental health lesson right there. Love your neighbor as you love yourself. And sometimes we as men have a hard time loving ourselves. And what does that look like? What does loving yourself look like? But it's like you're just talking about, getting some self-care,
And I just don't want to say black men in general.
Right.
Please go get some help. There's help out here.
Right.
Go get it.
Yeah,
Right.
And it doesn't make you lesser than.
No, it don't.
It makes you more than.
More than, right.
Right. Better than. Yeah.
Amen.
Yeah, good. That's good, Rob.
Yeah.
Right.
Look now.
Well, I think that's a perfect segue.
It is a perfect
good?
segue. I'm good.
All right, well, because we're talking, and we had, Boomer dropping them gems, X trying to drop a little something, and Millennial and Z. We're talking about bridge building, right? That's where my topic's going. And we kind of discussed this in the previous episode where we touched on it. And if you guys recall, we said, the church should pick a side in the culture wars. And that side is God's side, right? But to continue on a little bit further with this conversation, just continuing in that vein, my statement is this. The church should be peacemakers and bridge builders, not flamethrowers or fire starters. Reason why I wanted to share that with you guys, because maybe this is my therapy session, right? Like our younger brother here who's, wired in the political realm. We just had the election season, and you're watching social media, you're watching the news, you're hearing the pundits talk, and just being real with you, I got to lean in a certain way. I got to feel in a certain kind of way about our fellow citizens who may have a different political take than I do. I'm just being honest with you. But I'm thankful that God always brings me back to a realization that there, and his wise friend was telling us this week, there are 8 billion people on the face of the planet. And being in ministry, we have a mission to connect all people to our Christ, to Jesus Christ and his community. All people. I don't have the luxury of picking and choosing. And we're going through this Minority Report series, and we went through the prophet Jonah. That really resonated with me because I was kind of had a Jonah moment. Lord, I ain't going over there to tell them people about you. Them people, they believe this kind of stuff. They, they feel this kind of way. I'm so thankful that the Lord, for the Holy Spirit's conviction, because he convicted me and he led me back to the Beatitudes, where Jesus himself says, blessed are the peacemakers, not the peacekeepers, right? Peacemakers. Peacemakers interject themselves into conflict. And again, just sharing this with you, I started feeling like I wasn't going to be a fire starter or a flamethrower. I'm just going to let you burn yourself. A friend of mine also says you carry 2 buckets with you. One's water, one's gasoline. Being honest with you guys, I was carrying some gasoline. It wasn't expressed because I wasn't putting it out there on social media, but as I was in the social media realm, I could feel myself burning. Burning. How can you believe that? How can you, because I read this and I believe this and I'm feeling this way. It was taking me someplace not to be a peacekeeper, but it was leading me to being a fire starter who just was on the sidelines, not throwing the bombs, whatever. But all that to say, I wanted to share that with you. That's my thought. And what I really love about how Jesus put that together, peacekeeping. You got a compound word there, right? We got, the beauty of it is the peace. But what I love is how he mashes it up with the doing or the practice. That's active, not keeping, but making. To make peace is to actually interject yourself into the world of conflict and bring forth the gospel message to all people, that 8 billion people included. So in this season of, now we just got done with this selection, I'm glad I ain't got to hear how bad Cherry Beasley is, supposedly, and all this and the other. All those ads have gone away. Now I can, I'm thankful that I can focus back on, being a peacemaker versus simply being a peacekeeper. So
what's your sentence again?
Your
statement?
Yeah, let me get it clear. Get it nice and clean for you.
Yeah.
They worked on it pretty good.
Yeah.
The church should be peacemakers and bridge builders, not flamethrowers or fire starters.
Yeah. I'm going to push a little bit about peacemakers. they are fire starters.
You're right. You're right.
Right?
Yeah, yeah.
Because they have to go up against the opposition who's coming the other way.
Mm-hmm.
It's not easy being a peacemaker.
Mm-hmm.
Take MLK.
Yeah.
You know, he was given a message, right, that was going against the culture. And when you go against the culture, you're going to face opposition.
You're starting some fires.
You're starting some fires.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, you're trying to build some bridges, but the opposition ain't going to give up ground just because you got a message of love and peace and you know, all the things that God would have. But it's the purpose for starting the fire.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure,
so I think we need to look more.
Because some fire is cleansing.
Right.
It's a cleansing
and that's
fire
what I was going to say. Right. Yeah. See, there's fires for purifying, for cleansing,
exactly. Right.
you know, and those kinds of things. And so we have to understand that, because sometimes we'll take that, you know, peacemaker, like you said, I'm not going to get involved. I'm just going to let them burn. I didn't say anything. But no, you said at the very beginning, you're going to throw yourself in there. Yeah. But you can't just do that without there being some kind of friction. And friction is, you know, will bring fire.
Sure.
Yeah. But your point is on point.
Yeah. And I'm glad you push back on that, because you're absolutely right. There, like I said, there's a purifying fire, and there's one that's just for destruction.
Destruction, right.
But if you know, the gospel fire is one of purification.
Right.
And that, will it burn up some stuff?
Yeah.
Sure. But in order to burn off that which is impure
and all of that.
Exactly. So that we can, so that the pure gold comes through.
Can come through. And just think about gold, the fire that it has to go through, you know, that purifying moment. And so and so we can't take that passiveness, as oftentimes that passage is used for, that, you know, and that's why some people, especially we as men, can think of Christianity as being a soft kind of faith. You know, you get your Muslim brothers, you know, that look like, hey, we're ready for a fight, you know, kind of posture. You got somebody looking ready to defend you, right? Well, I haven't seen a brother badder than Jesus Christ.
Amen. Get up from the grave.
Yeah. But he went into the fight. You know, he went into the fight and he caused everything but peace. That's why he says, my peace I give you. The world can't give it and the world can't take it away. So he's helping us understand that there are two different kinds of peace. There's this temporary and then there's this permanent. But one may cause friction, well, they both will cause friction, but one has a purifying purpose and the other one has a destructive purpose, like you said. Yeah, good. That's good. Yeah.
I'm gonna keep it a whole 100. I'm gonna keep it a whole.
You ain't about no peace.
I at one point in time, I wasn't. And I think it was seeing all my young brothers and sisters that looked like me getting killed and murdered. And for me, I'm sitting here looking at it saying, I got younger nephews and cousins and things like that, and they're asking these questions, and I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna be the fire starter. I ain't bringing no peace. And then I had to reflect on myself and say, wait a minute. The fire that I'm starting, is it healthy? Is it building relationships, or is it tearing relationships? Am I being everything that God has called me to be? I had to reflect on that. It was a difficult reflection, because God showed me, nah, bro, this ain't how you do it. This ain't how you do it. So I had to go back and look at the people before me and how they did it. Like you said, the Dr. Kings, the John Lewis, things like that, and how they did it. Even though I know in my heart I didn't want to do it that way, it was only the right way to bring my brother and my sister that may not look like me, bring them along. Because if I don't bring them along and I just bring people that look like me, we're never going to get ahead. And that was the hardest piece that I had to face, because I'm looking at it saying, well, I got a Breonna Taylor. I know a Breonna Taylor because I got a sister, I got a mother, I got an auntie, I got a cousin. I know a George Floyd because I'm an uncle. I know fathers, things like that. So seeing that and then marching, it's like, forget everybody else. I'm pro-black and not realizing, wait, that's a fire starter. Because just because I'm pro-black don't mean all black folks is for me.
Right. That's right.
That's real.
So I either was going to be a bridge burner are building that bridge.
Yeah.
Amen. Good.
And it's still a fine balance that I'm working on, and I think we all are working on and striving to do.
Oh, look at Chris. Oh, he holding that lip. Oh, yeah, that's deep right there. Oh boy.
He leaning into the phone.
Oh, yeah.
Words.
The pause. We got.
I don't know. Just going back off your point, Doc. I think at the present church of today, it's much more of peacekeepers and what's the other word? Bridge
builders.
Bridge builders.
Yeah. So keepers versus makers. Is that what you're saying?
Wait.
I'm
See, the scripture says peacemakers.
Right.
But your point says peace.
No, I'm talking makers.
Okay,
Yeah.
sorry. Peacemakers and bridge
builders. Right.
Builders. Yeah.
Okay. Correct.
I say that because you don't see a lot of flames, honestly, unless it's like kind of like what you had a little bit, like it's like a internal thing. Because I feel as though like there might be some people inside the congregation of a church that might be those flamethrowers, but they're not gonna do nothing because they don't have the support that they need to keep on going with it.
Oh, that's deep.
Because the church is maintaining that peace keeping. Yeah.
Well, I'll say, and I don't mean to cut you. I just want to help add a little bit, so maybe you can jump on it. I think the fire, right, and the smoke that I've been seeing is people wanting smoke online, right. And I've seen my brothers and sisters, my black brothers and sisters with this fire, and my white brothers and sisters with this fire, and they both want smoke, right? Yeah. So they both want, and they're shooting darts at each other. Your expression of your faith is, kind of weak. Yours is more emotional. You know what I'm saying? So we're talking at each other. We're lobbing some fire, albeit not intentionally. We ain't got, the gall enough to call you out by name, but I'm seeing a lot of that. So that's where this came from, and that's where I was examining or witnessing the fire in social spaces online.
Yeah, I just think that it's pretty much like all talk but no action, and I just think it's just a factor that the church overall is what's like holding that together still. Now, I mean, the church might break. Yeah, I mean, it could happen, but I don't think it will because of the peacemakers and peacekeeping that are happening.
All right.
Can I be real? We need fire starters within the church body. And the reason why I say this is because if we're going to be true witnesses of the gospel, Jesus didn't ask for folks that's going to come with this I'm perfect type of mentality. He said, I want you to come flawed. Bring your fire. And some of your fire is you being flawed, being open and honest to say, hey, look, I fell short. Because people don't like throwing that fire out there. Because that's a fire starter. Well, where did you fall short? That's going to be the next question. Well, where did you fall short? Well, if we open and honest, I fell short in a lot of areas.
How much time you got?
How much time you got? And for real, how much time you got? We don't want to throw, well, when I met the Lord, we hit them with this. Well, when I met the Lord, he gave me all the blessings of the world. That's great. If I ain't never seen a Bible or I need you to throw the fire out there.
What did you come out of?
What did you come out of? Yeah.
Yeah, where was the pure, what you're speaking about more is the purifying fire. People got to be real about their walk. Like I said, we just weren't born into this faith and not have any trials or tribulation. We got to be honest to say, hey, I did this and I've come out of that, right? And those were some of my early, Chris, when I was younger, angst against the church because of the phoniness and the fakeness and things of that nature that you saw out there. People weren't allowing you to see that they had real issues. But then when you pull the curtain back, you see all the other mess, and so you say, the heck with it. But I mean
that's real. That's real.
Real. But that's a conversation for another time. But I think we can have that as far as our being more real with our faith. But going back to Fred's point, he's taking it more from the political side, how he was seeing it all wrapped up and wound up. So yeah, so we could probably have that other conversation later.
Sure.
Yeah.
And just to put a button on this, I did see a dope quote that went along with this, and actually convicted me in my passivity versus getting into the fight, right? Again, peacemaking demands that we step into the conflict. It's a quote from Jamar Tisby from The Color of Compromise. It says, and he's talking about racism specifically, but you can put any ism in here. So hear this quote. No matter how aware you are, your knowledge will remain abstract and theoretical until you care about the people who face the negative consequences of that ism.
That's deep.
Right. And given our mission to connect all people, we got to get down in all them isms. If we say we care enough about them, we got to get into the fight to be bridge builders, starting some cleansing fires, and even laying waste to some things that don't serve us to move us forward and move the kingdom forward. So that's my point. I'll end it right there.
Right.
Who's up?
So who's up next?
Come on, Doc. We coming right to you. We gonna keep this thing going.
That really swings my way, Fred.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, because my posture is God does not belong to a political party or ideology. All right, and that speaks to what you're wrestling with, and I think is what's holding many of us in bondage. Each party wants to claim that God is on their side, and the other party that if you speak against my policies and my procedures, you're speaking against God, okay, and vice versa. So that's that flame throwing, right? And each side feel they're trying to make peace for the culture. That's why everybody needs to be on this side or everybody needs to be on that side. And I was reading through the book of Joshua, and I've read this passage and I've seen it and I know it, but it matters when you read something. Okay, it matters. And I read it in the heat of and the height of the political campaign. Okay, hearing all of this and people trying to claim God as theirs. Each side. Each side trying to claim God as theirs. You don't love God because you don't give people their human rights, or you don't love God because of this, all of that. And so Joshua was getting ready to go into battle, and it says right here in Joshua 5, verses 13 through 15. Now, when Joshua was near Jericho, heading to the battle of Jericho, listen to this. He looked up and saw a man standing in front of him with a sword, with a drawn sword in his hand. Joshua went up to him and asked, listen to the question, are you for us or for our enemies? Just stay right there. He's asking, are you for us or for our, in other words, whose side are you on? Whose side are you on? Listen to what the response was. Neither, he replied, but as commander of the army of the Lord. Listen to what he says now. Neither, he replied, but as the commander of the army of the Lord, I have come. Then Joshua fell face down to the ground in reverence and asked him, what message does my Lord have for his servant? So now what has Joshua just done? He has said, I'm on the Lord's side.
He's chosen a side.
Right. Because he came and said, well, are you on our side? In other words, are you going with our agenda? Okay? He's going with our agenda. So then I said, okay, how does that play out in the New Testament? And so we go over where Paul was speaking in the book of Romans, at Romans 13, verses 1 through 4. And let me just read it. I think I want to just hang out a little bit in verse 1. It says, let everyone be subject to the governing authorities, for there is no authority, listen to this, except that which God has established. The authorities that exist have been established by God. Just stop right there. So again, this is whose side are you on, right? So when we look at any government structure and any form of government, it's not the government coming and telling God what to do. God is the one that said, I put government in place. So that's the first thing that we have to understand, that God is the author of government. not humanity. Okay? All right. So our roles as Christians, listen to this now, is first and foremost to ascribe ourselves to God's authority and agenda, not our own or one party's ideology. Okay? Now this gets deep, right? Because no one political party fully represents God. No one political party. So when we throw our hat, say, I'm a Democrat or I'm a Republican or I'm an independent, you're throwing all your weight behind their ideologies, and we all fall short. It's the same way like you have different denominations, right? And they all slice in something, but at the core, they will all, in a sense, have the core tenets right. But then maybe some of the non-essentials they may differ on. Well, in political parties, all right, if they have the interests of the people at heart, but how they see that may be different, right? So we just can't hang our hat there, right? But the thing is, what we have to look at is no one can remove God's perspective from government. Okay. In fact, now some of us would say, "Well, am I promoting a theocracy?" I don't have to. I don't have to. The Bible already does. The earth is the Lord's, and the fullness thereof, and all that dwell in it. So the thing becomes for us here in the States is that, you know, we have this thing of separation of church and state. Listen to me carefully. Separation of church and state, I had to write this down so I make certain I get it right, the separation of church and state is not the same as the connection of God and government.
Ooh, do that one again.
The separation of church and state is not the same as the connection of God and government. You cannot separate, as I said earlier, God from government. You might separate religious orders or religiosity from the government, but you cannot disconnect God from government.
Sure.
Okay? We just can't. So we as people or parties or however you politicians may have opinions on what we think is right. But when we walk into that booth, we don't need to go in with our opinions or what we think is right. You need to go in with your Bible and say, okay, what does God say is right? And where does this person stand on that? Now, the problem is because of all the media dart throwing and all of that, I don't know if we ever get to the core of any politician now, what their core beliefs are, because they have to sign on the party's ideologies. You know, they might say, well, you know what I believe personally, right? But I'm for the party. So I sell my soul
to the party.
Yeah.
My allegiance here and this.
Yeah. And even being an independent, you can't be independent because that's like a party.
Sure.
You know,
you still got some fealty to something.
Yeah. So I don't know what you would call yourself if you're not affiliated with the independents, the Republicans, or the Democrats, right? And if you were trying to build, as they would say, a base, right? Yeah, I guess that's called Trumpism. Well, because, I mean, he doesn't have a party. You know what I mean? But he's trying to hijack, but that's a whole nother story. But so we have to be careful in our trying to put God on one side. Because Joshua asked the question clearly, are you for us or for our enemies? And so that's how most of us look at God, you know, he's on this side or he's on that side. No, we all have it wrong. We need to say, okay, God, like Joshua, what would you have your servant do?
Yeah.
So that's the question we should ask ourselves when we go in the voting booth. What would you have your servant do? Yeah. The problem, as I said, is getting to the core of the candidate for them to be bold enough to say, this is what I really believe. I was reading somewhere where they said that this official, and I should have brought it, got up and was quoting what the Bible says should be. And I think the other official came up and said, that's good.
Nadler, I saw that.
You know, that's good, but that's not where we are, you know. And so once we remove God out of government, we get what we get now. And this is this chaos that we're seeing in our political society and our government. You see all kind of what's the word I want to say? Moral values being tanked because we're trying to be the government. We're playing God.
Yeah.
All right. We know what's best. All right. When we're going totally against God's word.
See, that reminds me of reading Dr. Evans, Tony Evans, Kingdom Politics or whatever. Just, I mean, you really laying that down flat. And that helped me too. You know, work through this.
And I'm reading that too, and I guess that's where I got some of that from. But because
I mean, and that's, you know, the kingdom versus the empire. We give so much credence to, you know, the empire and all that it's done, or we think that it's done, all the while forgetting the king. You know, the Great Depression, we had, you know, the New Deal, we've had this, we got the Green New Deal, we got all these great things. Look at how good we are. All the while forgetting what the king has said, what the king has established, what the king owns cattle on 1,000 hills. You know, there's enough for everybody. You know, so if we were really looking at the distribution of resources, we should do it from the kingdom perspective, versus that empire where you know, that's how we get these divisions and some with plenty, others with none. You know.
And you're going to continue to have that divide. And what is happening every time you have a recession or inflationary periods, it is that is more against those who are without. Those who have, they just keep going. You know, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. They don't stop at the pump and look at the price. They just look at the need and say, I need gas. And they pull over and they get it and they keep going. You know, those of us who have a budget, we're like, okay, wait a minute. The one across the street is a penny less. Boom. We go across the street for the penny. Right? The inconvenience, we probably burn more than we save.
Trying to get to the
penny. Yeah.
That's deep. Thank you, Doc. Go ahead, sir.
Ooh. I know. I'm gonna be honest. Being a political science scholar, I always get asked, "Well, what side do you set on for this?" And is the Bible truly in this? And you know, I actually did get asked that in a class. You know, we were talking about the Ukraine war, and I just brought up the biblical context, letting them know there's a time for war. There's a time for conflict. There's a time for conflict. And I had a classmate, well, what did the Bible got to do with this war? I said, well, you can't have government and politics without Scripture. It was outlined in Scripture on what government and governance is supposed to look like. And God being the overruling governor and president and or king and all of that, he overrules all of it. So, you know, I see what you're saying about Republicans and Democrats, because I get that a lot. Well, the Republicans, they are hitting you on saying, well, if you're not for this, you're not for God. And then the Democrats are
pimping them.
And then they hit us with, and I'm going to be real, they hit our culture with, well, the civil rights movement was, they believed in God. So, you know, the Democrats believe in God. Well, hold up. If I really was to unveil that curtain, are you really believing in God? And that's where, as a scholar, I wrestle with it. Because I'm like, okay, everybody asking me what side I pick, but one thing I've learned from you, Doc. Let me go to this, the actual context of where everything happens.
Thus saith the Lord.
Because I can't just say, well, this is right because you want me to go along and get along.
Right. And that's the thing. And especially we as people of color, we've actually sold our soul to a party, all right, just because we may have had certain victories. But if they're moving away from God's agenda, all right, should we move along with them because of a past act? We should be asking the question, what have you done for me lately?
Accountability.
Right, versus what you did for me. Okay, that's good. But, you know, if you go back and look at your history, right, all right, who was for slavery and who was against? It was Democrat or Republican?
Democrats was for slavery. Republicans wanted to demolish.
Before the Southern strategy, great switch.
You see, so when you go back and look at those kinds of things, you know, so the key thing is all right, what side of the street you're on, it depends on what the issue is. Right, and
and regardless of those jerseys, right, you know what I'm saying, and if they switched or did not switch, we still always have to understand that they are all subservient to the king.
Right. And
You know?
right.
And when we get, like you're saying, Doc, your whole point, when we get that out of order,
that's it.
we rely too heavily on those things that we've done. And, like
Right.
Dr. Evans was talking about the Tower of Babel and
Right.
how let's build this great, this feat of architecture to, us and give us a name for
That's
ourselves.
it. Right. That's it.
So we can bring earth to heaven.
Instead of heaven to earth.
Heaven to earth, right. And that's what our politics is.
And that's it. And that's the point, And so, we have to be extremely careful that we don't get in bed and stay there because of past victories and past wins. And everything, I'll say this, and I know I'm getting a huge trouble. Everything is not a civil rights act.
Understood.
But they'll pull it and say, this is a civil rights act.
Yes.
This is they did this to you also. Y'all should come fight this because this is a civil rights battle.
Yeah.
I'm a bad English, but good theology. No, it ain't. And I'm gonna stop right there because Chris, go ahead, Chris, unwind and unfold on me, bro.
Look, Chris, like,
Yeah.
What you got? Home?
I don't know. I'm not a big political science person at all. I just watch. But I wish that religion and politics, didn't go together, but they do.
Right.
And it's kind of awful. And the only thing I can really think about is Reverend J. Augustine. I remember he came and talked, and he broke down the factor of how when I think the 70s or 80s, when Republicans were really struggling trying to get votes, they try to figure out a way of what they can do to get more voters. It's pretty much okay. Well, let's look. Let's attach religion to politics.
Right. That's right.
And if I can get these religion people to
evangelical
pretty much,
block.
Yes. Get them on my side.
If I get them on my side, then I got them.
Or majority.
Right.
Yeah, and I kind of feel as though that's where we're at, and it's I don't want to say it's always going to be like that, but I feel like it will because that's just
But Chris, you're hitting on a point there. But they didn't do it for the word of God; they did it for votes.
Yes,
sure. Right. So it was a political move, right? Not a real moral move. Right. Yeah. And so let's just be real. They're pimping God.
Yeah.
The pursuit of power.
Right. Yeah.
Human power versus the kingdom moving forward.
That's it.
Right. So Doc, you're not gonna get in trouble for your statement.
Well, I don't care.
Because no. Because honestly, I agree with you with the civil rights.
That's close.
I agree with you. And if we get in trouble, it's cool because I hear people say, "Well, you're not standing up for this fight."
Right.
Well, not all the fights I need to stand up for. Because my question gonna be, why you not standing up for it?
Right.
That's gonna be my question back. If you're so emotional and upset that I'm not fighting this fight, maybe just maybe I'm not fighting it because I'm not educated enough to fight it yet. I haven't done my biblical research. I haven't went to God and say, what direction do you want me to go?
Asking the question that Joshua asked. Right. And that's the question we ought to be asking in every instant. And sometimes, Charles, I like what you just said. And we have to be willing to say that we're not educated enough. To make a decision on that.
And be okay with it.
And be okay with not just going off the sound bites.
Right.
And a little bit of media blitz, well, you heard what they said, and wanting you to make your decision on 144 characters
now.
Or a 10-second sound bite, on what was taken probably out of context. When you look at most of those things, the thing to go back is listen to the whole speech. Right? And then you see that part that they pulled out. Oh, wait a minute. I didn't have the total context. And that's what happens a lot of times with the Bible. When preachers preach, they'll take something out of context and they'll run with it. Well, it was out of context, but it was a good sermon. And it got people to do something.
To react to it.
And then, another thing that they do is use the Bible out of context. I was watching one, it was a few years ago. I think this was the first year Barack Obama ran. And it kind of bothered me because he was like, we were still in the Iraqi war. And he kind of used the no weapon formed against me shall prosper type of stay. I'm looking like, bruh. And I'm going to be honest, I wasn't as deep as a studier as I am now, but I had to do some research, and I said,
Are we talking about, right?
Are we talking about because what I realized was with that no weapon, that was more so of a spiritual,
right.
not of physical.
Right.
Yeah. And everybody was like, "Oh, that's right," and we shouldn't be fighting this war. Send them home, no weapon. And I'm like, y'all need to read the context. That's not what it meant. And they will be quick to take the Bible out of the wrong context.
But it's the right phrase.
It's the right phrase, and it gets people.
It's convenience versus the conviction.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? This will work right here. If we just sprinkle a little, like you say, sprinkle a little Jesus on it.
Sprinkle a little Jesus on it.
You know, but not enough to really, because if you read it in context, that's where you get convicted. All of us should, stand in conviction of that.
That's right. Who's next? Baby boy.
Didn't he say fire starter? We talking about fire starters.
Yeah.
This is a cleansing one now.
Hold on.
It should be.
You need an altar call first.
Nah.
You need an old school altar call.
You good? Bring it.
Yeah, my topic is I think that the Black church should stop making a fool of itself.
Wow. You?
And I say that because every single day, I scroll on social media, all this other stuff, and I just see outrageous videos. And like when everybody's like pastors in the pulpit just, saying stuff, congregation acting up, and it's just like, I don't want to say it's embarrassing, but it's also awful that, that the Black church is like acting this way. Because like for so long, like the Black church has been known for, oh, we're all serious and, business and all this other stuff. And now it's just like, we're just
entertainment.
Yeah, entertaining and acting a fool. And if we are like trying to, be that church that doesn't have a spot or wrinkle, then like, what are we doing? For instance, like I watched a video where some visitors came into the church, and while the pastor is like middle of his sermon, he stops and pretty much is like kicking these people out. Another video where a preacher is in the pulpit talking about his like hard anger feelings towards his sister because his mother passed away, and she pretty much gave up all her assets to her daughter. And that man was just like full of like hatred and just congregation supporting and everything. And it's just like that. Right. What are we doing?
Right.
So yeah, I think we just need to stop making a fool of ourselves because it's getting bad.
Ooh. Well, I'm gonna push back. I'm gonna offer the first pushback. All right, because and you were bringing out, because I remember that one example. The pastor was beefing with his sister who opened up a ministry in the same town, and he's actually almost like praying, for her failure from the right. And those are examples, and right. and that it happens. Yeah. Sadly, we live in this internet age. Well, not sadly, but we live in the internet age where anything can go live and go viral in a matter of seconds. I would say that those are the outliers versus, because when you say the Black church, you're casting a umbrella over a lot. Now, is there some foolishness out here in the church? Certainly. Sometimes we push the envelope in being, controversial to get people or get eyes to, creating a conflict. And as a minister, you want to create the conflict. Sometimes
or get views.
Yeah, to get some views. Yeah, and we, flood our whole stage and do all kinds of crazy stuff to get people to tune in. But I agree, though. But we can never lose the cause for why we exist anyway. To be light in the midst of darkness, to be His people, to be the ecclesia. To stand. But I do think we trip out a little bit. But I'd say that those are exceptions and not the rule. That's what I would say. But
I'll stay right there with you. And you see that and you lock in on it because you see that in your feed. but there's foolishness in all churches.
Right.
You know,
Right.
and it's sad, but it's real. And so I would say any church with foolishness needs to stop and needs to focus on the real mission at hand. You find a lot of people who are trying to get views.
Yeah.
I was, I think it was it 60 Minutes? I think it was talking about how you can make certain that you get your tweet or post watch is to be very controversial. The more controversial you are, the more hits you're going to get, and the meaner and more the mean spirit, controversial and mean spirit. Those are two things.
Yeah.
If you want your numbers to rise, right? And so we're getting locked into this culture where views are important. So you get someone say, "Oh yeah, I can exasperate that," and boom, get the views. But I think that your statement should just take out the word black and say churches ought to stop foolishness, as Fred was saying, and look at it from the top and just say all churches need to stop it. But it's a point well taken because there is some foolishness out there.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm gonna come to your aid, but I'm gonna give you some pushback. I'm gonna give you some pushback as well. But I'm gonna come to your aid first because me being a little boy, I've been coming to first since I was a little boy, and there was certain things that I felt like the black church was doing that was foolish, pushing young people away when they're trying to push the church forward, telling us that we were too young. That's one thing of foolishness, not only in the black church, but in churches in general. Stop telling young people they got to wait their turn. If they're willing and able to learn sound or music or ushering or even ministry, let them be able to learn. Don't, oh, well, you ain't old enough for this. This our time. Yeah, you wait your turn. That to me was foolishness because I'm like, well, if I want to get on the choir and rock, and I want to get on the young adult choir, I want to rock. Why I got to wait till I'm 17 or 16 or to do that? So there is that type of foolishness that we see within the church. And then the foolishness of, and I love this because I saw videos, and it was a video of how we welcome people. It is foolish how sometimes we welcome people. We supposed to greet them with love,
open arms,
and grace. And why this brother coming in here with his jeans sagging? Why she coming in here looking like she just came from the club?
Because she did, and that's okay.
And you know what I'm saying? And for us, we're foolish to put somebody down because we all fell short. And I think that's where the foolishness of the church happens because we get so biblically sound and we get all these degrees and now we got this nice car and this nice house and we got all these plaques. Well, we just biblically sound, not forgetting once upon a time, if we pull that curtain back like you say, there's some things you wouldn't want people to know. That is foolishness. And so we need to be more open and honest to say, hey, let them in. And can I be real? If foolishness come into the door, that's where the believers need to come and step in and guide that young brother or sister.
I would say love them.
Love them.
Yeah. Love them first. Yeah.
Love them. Yeah, love them. Build that relationship, and then we can.
Now you can get your
relationship,
and to get to the real respect.
Right.
Respect.
So you got to respect me first before you can guide me.
Yeah.
You need to hear my story before I hear your story.
Right.
Yeah.
And let's be just being real. But now, and I will go back to now. We said the church generally we all on you, but we can go back to. And what I'm feeling you on is that when you talk about black church specifically, let's be honest, we have been, the world of theology looks at us as just hyper emotional. They don't give a lot of credit to our theology. It's usually, that preacher was okay, but he really relied more on emotional, that foolishness, that I think we get ourselves caught up into sometimes where, we just want to let's be real. Some people just want to come to church and shout and that catharsis to get it off of them. But you ain't heard a word that man who stood there preparing for weeks to give you. You were waiting on the praise break from the choir. I mean, from the band.
Yeah.
Does that happen?
Yeah.
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
Now, and I'm not sitting here saying I can tell when somebody's really slain in the spirit when they're not. That's just a move of the spirit, right? But can we be real? Everybody ain't slain like that. I don't think at one time like that.
Yeah.
And at the exact same moment when the drummer and the bass player decide to 5-7-1 or however they do.
Right. And then when they stop, everybody stop. So, it's like they cut it on, they cut it off. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Again, who am I to say?
Right. Yeah.
Right. But that's what I'm saying. But because I really believe that he's calling the church now, black and white, the church universal now, to get rid of all these foolish games because their souls hanging in the balance. And we're getting, it's the day of the Lord, right? And there's going to come a day when we need to be found, ushering the kingdom in, bringing those lives in and being serious about it versus being so preoccupied with the things that don't really matter, those non-essentials. Because there's souls that are hanging in the balance, man. We got work to do. I ain't got time to be playing.
Amen. Chris, I think about, and I thank you, Lord. I think about when Jesus finished the sermon and he asked Peter to go back out into the lake and go deeper and go deeper. And they was looking at Jesus like, bro, you must be foolish. We've been fishing here all day and all day. We ain't caught nothing. And now you telling us to go back out. I think sometimes we forget that sometimes we got to be fools for the Lord. To go back out deeper, to go dig up and go catch those fish. And we have become so siloed that we're foolish enough to say, well, they'll find God on their own terms. It's not my obligation to help them. That's where I feel like churches in general is becoming foolish. Because Peter had faith enough to say, I'm going to go out here. I don't know if I'm going to catch anything
but I'm going to go.
But I'm going to go.
You said so.
Yeah.
And
that ought to be enough.
That
ought to be enough.
It ought to.
Yeah, we don't need to understand the process to trust the process.
Amen. Yeah, because we all a fool for somebody, right?
That's it. That's right.
Hey,
why do fools fall in love? Now watch it.
Everybody plays the fool sometimes.
Why do fools? They wrote a whole. Hey, that was a classic too. They wrote a song.
Yeah.
Come on, Doc. That was. Come on. Why do fools fall in love?
Yeah.
Look, he's saving the powder.
That's it. I can't get out of the way right now.
Can't get out of the way.
I love to tell you, but I can't tell you.
But I want to tell you.
I want to tell you.
But I'll tell you
when I can't tell you.
That whole deal.
Look, y'all, this has been a good episode.
Cranberry conversation.
Cranberry sauce and conversation. Y'all, I got the generational gem.
Okay.
I'm a little nervous.
All right.
Nah, I got it, you guys.
Okay,
I got it. I do have it. And it's this. Just because the pots are jumping in the kitchen doesn't mean we stop loving, caring, and reaching out to people. Okay. Just because the pots are jumping doesn't mean we stop loving, caring, and seeing about people.
Okay.
Right.
All right.
Okay.
So Thanksgiving ain't a time off. It's a time on.
That's
We're still kingdom building.
Yeah, we still kingdom building.
Right. That'll work.
Let me in your pot, though. You got to invite me over to get in the pot, though.
That's it. Yeah,
no sweet potato pies for some people.
Hey, don't be hating. Don't be hating.
With that being said, you guys, episode 10.
Yeah.
Episode 10.
All right.
We want to thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Bring your topics to us. If you have a topic, please give them to us. We want them. Put them in the comment section. Please bring them. We want them so that when we go into December and then the new year, we bring topics that you want to hear. Now, you can always follow us on all of our wonderful social medias. If you want to check us out, any of our services, plays, For Brothers, you go to our YouTube channel at FMBC-Concord. Now, we do love our Facebook likes. So follow us right there on Facebook at FMBC.Concord. Now, we love to tweet. And we love our Twitter.
As long as it's still working.
As long as it's still working.
For the time being.
For the time being.
At FMBC_Concord. And then if you just want to check out our images, our reels and things like that, go to our Instagram. Go follow us there at FMBC_Concord. Till we meet again, God bless you and happy Thanksgiving to all. Happy holidays to all. See you soon.
Peace.
TV.